in the photographic collection of the Bavarian National Museum in Munich, Germany, is a daguerreotype dated 1839. It was taken by Louis Daguerre himself, apparently from the highest window of a Paris building. Now listen carefully. The scene is of a beautiful boulevard stretching into the distance. On the sidewalk below, a man stands with one foot up on a bootblack's platform, a tiny, blurry image. The first human figure ever photographed. Something else intriguing about this Paris cityscape, something almost unearthly. Looking at the picture, one slowly becomes aware of it. And from then on, you'll be haunted by it. Louis Daguerre was an opera scenery painter, you know, with an unquenchable scientific curiosity. For many years, he worked with photographic pioneer Nepiche toward the perfection of so-called heliographic reproduction. After the death of Nepiche, Daguerre continued to experiment, ultimately discovering the process that was to bear his name. The early daguerreotype we have been discussing is entitled Paris Boulevard. You can appreciate the exquisite detail in this picture. Even from a distance, you'll see the brickwork in the buildings, the tile work on the roofs, the individual cobblestones in the street. In the windows across the way, you'll see wooden mullions and muntins clearly defined, the pleats in the curtains easily counted. Yet with the exception of that one tiny lonely figure in the corner, the entire boulevard, a half mile or more, plainly visible in the gleaming sunshine, is utterly devoid of life. Now the shadows cast by the slender trees suggest that it's neither early morning nor late afternoon. The boulevard should be bustling with strollers and shoppers and horse-drawn carriages and delivery wagons, perhaps even romping dogs and children. But no one, save that one man on the corner, is anywhere in this downtown Paris scene. Pervading the ancient daguerreotype is an eerie calm, as though somebody has just dropped a neutron bomb. The glorious Paris daylight, praised as unique by generations of artists, shimmers everywhere, illuminating the intricacies of the ubiquitous, lifeless objects, and observing, we are convinced if there were life to be seen, we would see it. Down through the ages, it has been said in various ways that all around us is an unseen world. Many say that they feel its presence. Others claim to have parted the curtain and peered inside that unseen world. The skeptics cling to a claim of their own that no camera ever lied. Well, wait a minute. Now it needs to be told that that Paris Boulevard photographed by Louis Daguerre was, during the moments the daguerreotype was taken, was in fact teeming with flesh and blood phantoms. I mean, people were roaming the sidewalks and horses were pulling carriages, and yet that early daguerreotype process was so slow that only stationary objects, that only the ones which stood still could be captured on the plate, such as that one man waiting patiently for his boots to be brushed. History honors him as the first man ever photographed, but that's only because he was the one standing still. Now, you've heard it said, and will again, that the camera doesn't lie, or even perhaps the human eye. Well, don't you ever believe that, now that you know the rest of the story.
And now the rest of the story. The camera doesn't lie. Well, in most cases, without modifications, special effects, or other forms of trickery, they don't. But in the case of the photograph Mr. Harvey spoke about, we must consider that photography was in its infancy when that image was created. In 1826, more than 10 years before Louis Daguerre took the photo Mr. Harvey spoke about, another French inventor, Niepce, created a photo which is regarded as the oldest surviving camera photograph and possibly the first photo ever taken. He captured the image with a camera obscura, sometimes called a pinhole camera, which is a darkened box with a small holder lens in it which allows an inverted scene to be projected onto a surface. In this case, it was projected onto a pewter plate thinly coated with bitumen of Judea. The bitumen hardened in brightly lit areas, but not in the darker areas. Niepce set up his camera obscura in his second-story bedroom and aimed it toward the south. The image was projected onto the pewter plate for about 8 hours before he washed away the remaining chemical. This is the original plate he created. It's known as the view from the window at Le Gras. The image is almost impossible to make out. The image becomes only slightly clearer when colorized, reoriented, and enhanced. Daguerre invented an altogether different process for capturing images that was far superior than Niepce. Where Niepce's process took 8 hours to produce an image, Daguerre's process had an exposure time as little as 4 to 5 minutes, depending on the amount of natural light. In the process, Daguerre polished a thin sheet of silver-plated copper to a mirror finish. He treated it with mercury vapor, which made the surface light sensitive. Then he exposed it to light from 4 to 5 minutes to form the image. He rinsed the mercury vapor from the plate with a chemical treatment, rinsed it with water, and dried it. Sometimes he mounted the thin sheet behind glass to protect the image. The process was named after Daguerre, and it's called daguerreotype. Sometime between April 24th and May the 4th, 1838, Louis Daguerre set up his camera in his upstairs studio and aimed it at the street below. At around 8 o'clock in the morning, Daguerre took the photo Mr. Harvey spoke about, now known simply as the Boulevard du Temple. He took another photo at midday, which has survived, and another in the evening, which has been lost. The Boulevard du Temple is one of the earliest surviving images and the earliest known surviving image of a human. The photo is about 5 inches by 6 inches. Now remember, the street would have been bustling with people walking, horses, buggies, maybe children playing, but the only clear human we can see is of the one known as the bootblack customer. Daguerre knew that due to the exposure time, nothing that was moving would be recorded in the image. It's unlikely that he paid any attention at all to the man getting his shoes shined. Remember, the street was teeming with people and horses. Imagine his excitement when he looked at the photo in 1838 and saw a man standing there, immortalized for all time. Well, it almost wasn't so. In March of the following year, 1839, a fire broke out in Daguerre's studio. Adjacent to his studio was his home. At Daguerre's insistence, firefighters allowed his studio to burn and turned their attention to saving his home. Thankfully for us, the firefighters were successful and his home was saved. You see, Daguerre's laboratory was not in the studio, but in his home. It was there that Daguerre stored his daguerreotype photos, including Boulevard du Temple. Here are some other interesting daguerreotype photos. In 1842, a photographer took this daguerreotype, which is the earliest known photograph of a living animal. In 1844, Louis Daguerre sat motionless for this daguerreotype. In 1846, a photographer named Nicholas Shepard created this daguerreotype of a U.S. congressman-elect. It's the first authenticated image of Abraham Lincoln. You know, it's hard for us to believe in our modern world with high-resolution cameras on our smartphones that the process to capture an image was so difficult. Because photos are so easy to take and because we take more photos than any other time in history, we take photos for granted. Most of us never print a physical copy of our photos. Unless we make physical prints of our photos, it's unlikely that they'll be handed down to future generations. Unlike Daguerre's Boulevard du Temple, they will likely remain lost forever in the digital realm. I'm Brad Dison. Thanks for watching. As Paul Harvey would say, good day.